is your Frontier opening bell. Let's get the show started for this Wednesday, the 28th of November. Get a sense of where how the markets finished off across Frontier Africa for Tuesday. Zimbabwe stock market was a big jump. Econet Wireless reported some good earnings, as it were, despite the decline in EBITDA. Revenue was up about 7%. So that lifted the Zimbabwe stock market and a few other names, such as Delta. On Tuesday, the Cote d'Ivoire stock market, the BRVM, was stronger by 0.5%. The five main indices for the Nigerian stock market, the banking, oil and gas, industrial goods, consumer goods, and insurance, were under the green. And that fetched the NGX about 0.23% in the green territory, the strongest reading since we started the week. Today, we're expecting the listing of a new company, real estate and hospitality company. That's going to be about 2:30 Nigerian time. It's going to be fast behind the listing presentation to hear from the directors and management of the company what they're bringing to the table and to investors in that particular stock. So keep that in mind later also. Today, the Egyptian stock market continued to struggle to the end of its trading week in Cairo. Tuesday market was 0.51% in the red, and that downward trajectory started on Sunday. Nairobi was down 0.64% despite a strong trading in the shares of Safaricom, Kengen, and Equity Bank on Tuesday. Portland, Sanlam, as well as Lukoil shares were down in Nairobi. The Johannesburg stock market eked out 12 basis points in the green. Resources contributed about 1.5% to that. Financials added about 0.16%. Tuesday to the GSE, 84,526. Folks are really enthused about South Africa's sense of economic direction and the comeback of portfolio investors into the market after they took about more than $1 billion out. And now some of these investors are coming back, not just into bond, but also equities listed on the GSE. Let's move on and check through the big stories from the East African Authority market. A lot of pains coming for Kenyans because the finance bill is back in another way. Treasury is looking at about 343 billion shillings in revenue from the new tax bill. Kenya is also asking for help from the United Nations to tame the Starlink internet service provided by Elon Musk, because Starlink is beginning to edge Safaricom, that iconic telco which is indigenous to Kenya, as Starlink get not just into Kenya, but into Zimbabwe, Nigeria, and a few other African countries. Starlink is now being seen as a threat, quote unquote, as it were. Tanzania's pro-business policy, Senate President Suluhu Hassan, is not going unnoticed globally. She's been praised. Bloomberg reporting that foreign direct investment is now pouring into Tanzania, and there is expected to be a whole lot more of foreign investments into the East African economy because President Hassan is hitting the right button since she took office a little over 2 years ago. And one of the things that the Tanzanian authorities are doing is the revocation of about 1,500 mining licenses in the Chonya region to allow small-scale miners in the country, the indigenous, to be part of the country's resource business. And finally, the EFDB has launched a climate action window tech facility, assistance facility, and you can read up more on that. Let's just move on to West Africa. Nigeria is in pains, as it were, over the past 1 year because the price they're paying for petrol at the pump rose 81.8% over a year period. That's quite a record. That's about 1,184.83 kobo, according to data released yesterday by the Statistics Office. Petrol prices about a year ago, October 2023, was about 630 naira per litre. That's jumped significantly over the period. Today, the Central Bank of Nigeria is selling about 610 billion naira in dated treasury papers, 3 tenors. That would be a rollover by the central bank. Keep that in mind. In Gambia, the vice president has launched a trade logistics charter. The idea is to end the falling revenue by the Gambia's port authority. In Ghana, that's where the authorities got in about $3.6 million in donation from the UK, the US, The idea is to help 70,000 drought-impacted people in the West African resource-rich economy. Let me take that straight up to the Southern African region. What's the headline story today? The central bank is expected, the Reserve Bank is expected to cut interest rate at least by another 25 basis points, taking the repo rate lower to 7.75%. 14 African central banks are expected to take interest rate decisions for the final time this year. According to Bloomberg, a number of them are expected to cut rates. About 5 are expected to leave rates unchanged. Nigeria's central bank is expected to take rates higher when it meets for the final time later this week. So all that in mind. South Africans, however, South Africans have pulled about $2.8 billion from their pensions, beating estimates just on the back of that easing in pension fund regulations in the country by President Ramaphosa's administration. And Mitsui of Japan is the highest bidder for the first quantum mines stake in Zambia's mining sector. And go to Zimbabwe, where Bridgeport Capital is looking to delist its Class A shares from the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange and list those shares on the Victoria Fall Exchange. That's the VFX. We're expecting that to happen in the days ahead. In earnings, Mabisa Holdings reporting 10% growth in its second quarter earnings results because of mining and housing infrastructure business moving higher. And Econet, I mentioned at the start of the show, posting a revenue jump 7% for its half year ended June. EBITDA was down 2%. Profit before tax up by, however, about 24%. Earnings per share, basic earnings per share was reported at 12 cents there for shareholders. That's for the half year ended September 2025 for Econet Wireless. The shares were up 2.36% Tuesday on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. Let's move it on to North Africa and grab a couple of headlines just to summarize this show for you today. Egypt MSMEDA, which is the small scale enterprises, finalizing the establishment of the Kutua financing. That's going to be about 40% stake there. Achna Development says it's launched the Eastville project within the New Cairo. That's an investment of about 5 billion Egyptian pounds, while Morocco's central bank has advanced climate resilience program of the country at the COP29 in Azerbaijan. That's for the financial services sector. The central bank, the Bank al-Maghrib, posted the position the financial services sector at the COP29 summit in Baku. And Libya's Certain Oil says it's using what's called horizontal drilling technology to raise its output from 2 wells by about 2,300 barrels per day, and using modern technology to increase productivity. And those are the headlines we're tracking for you this Wednesday. And don't forget, Moody's got a new emerging markets 2025 outlook report, posted that commodity exporters in sub-Saharan Africa will see benefit from increased demand, especially for those whose materials are tied to what you call carbon transition. South Africa is expected to grow this year, but at a very modest level. You can read up the rest of that report just out of Moody's ratings on Tuesday. And those are your headlines for your Frontier Opening Bell this Wednesday, the 28th of November. Have a great day, everyone. Bye for now.